welcome to Shoot Me Straight with David Fields, Eddie Gallagher. We got Camilo Giraldo with us.
Sir.
Giraldo?
Giraldo.
Giraldo.
Come on, Dave.
Bad. He's a good buddy of mine. Going to hear some of his story. I know some of it, but honestly, I don't think I've really heard it all the way through. One night I remember you telling me some of it, but I don't remember us going into details on any part of it. But remember, just an awesome story of overcoming. And, yeah. So tell us, where were you born?
Well, that's crazy because I thought I came here to learn more about you guys than me. So I'm the one that is getting interviewed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, we appreciate you coming on as well and taking the time.
No, absolutely. You guys are incredible. So where do you want me to start? You want to give you a quick 30,000-foot view of who I am, where I came from?
Yeah, where you were born, where you came from, where you grew up, and then pretty much up to how you got here.
Okay. Oh. Awesome. So I'm originally from Colombia, South America. My family, we moved to the United States in 2005. So I lived a pretty privileged life in Colombia by Colombian standards. Everything was beautiful. We lived in a gorgeous three-story house. Went to the best schools in Medellin, and then in the early 2000s, sort of our life got flipped upside down. My family owned cattle ranches about 10 hours from the city. And then at the time, there was a lot of the guerrilla warfare, starting extortion in my family. And my uncle, who was our family attorney, sort of took the lead. And he decided not to negotiate with them. And very unfortunate, but my uncle got kidnapped, and we never got to see him again. Through that series of events, my dad was shot once. I didn't know until years later. He had a sort of a Band-Aid, and he had a friend of his that rode a motorcycle always behind him. I could have never understood why he was never inside the car with us, and why he couldn't come for dinner, just sit outside. It turned out my dad was shot, and we had a bodyguard with us for about 2 months.
Dang.
And in the middle of all of this economic situation, paying 2% interest rates per month, 24% annualized, we sort of lost everything we had. And when I say we lost everything we had, when my dad finally made the decision to take the leap and come to the States, we couldn't afford to pay for our plane tickets. So a couple of our relatives put enough money together. We bought four plane tickets with our final destination, Freeport, Florida. So
Exotic location.
yeah, exactly. And so we packed our bags, true story, December 30th, we packed our bags, one-way tickets, say goodbye to friends, didn't know when we were going to see them again, and we landed in Miami. We lost our airport, our flight connection, and we celebrated our first New Year's in traffic in downtown Miami. We spoke zero English, but here we are, four family members, my dad, my brother, my dad, my mom, my brother, and I, and just a lot of hopes, just a bunch of mixed emotions. I remember when the plane was taking off, my mom was crying, I was crying, my brother was crying, and we looked over, and my dad does this. I still, to this day, every time I get on a plane, I do this, because he did this thing with his hand where he brought it down. When that plane took off Colombia, he knew that he was going to give us new opportunities beyond what we could have ever imagined. And so that's just something very special to me. There's a song in Spanish, since you guys speak Spanish, Juan Luis Guerra, Visa para un sueño. It says visa for a dream. And that basically, every time I get on a plane, I play that song, and I repeat that moment when the plane takes off. I go and I listen to it, and it just brings all these incredible memories. But so we moved over. We ended up in Freeport because 5 years before that, another Colombian who his daughter's water skied landed at some famous water ski lakes in a town called Santa Rosa Beach, Florida. And he fell in love with the area, and he decided to relocate his family out here. And, a few years before that, when my uncle was moving, he says, hey, come over here, work with me. He started building granite countertop kitchens, and that was sort of the early beginning of the Colombian colony. that came to the Panhandle. You know, fast forward 15 years later, there's like 50 of them.
Oh yeah, yeah. They run deep here.
Yeah, yeah. And so we knew anybody other than my uncle. We enrolled at Freeport High School. I spoke zero English. My brother and I were the only two international students. And we started getting creative. We started cleaning houses, doing whatever it take to make a living. And it was pretty tough at first. I kind of went into this stage where I wouldn't talk to my parents. I just hated them. You know, I had my friends in Colombia. I was 15. I wasn't a popular kid here. Didn't have a driver's license. So it was some pretty tough moments. But about 8 months into it, something clicked on me when I distanced myself from everything and I just focused on what I had. I just saw all these efforts, seeing my mom scrubbing toilets. You know, we lived in a one-bedroom trailer, mattresses in the floor, and just seeing their grit and their willingness to do whatever it takes to give my brother and I a better opportunity. And I just kind of switched it around, and I just went full force just to do whatever it takes and take advantage of the opportunities that, this country had given us and the efforts that my parents had made. So I started just saving money and working and going to school. School was a little tough for me because since I spoke no English, Freeport didn't have an infrastructure for non-Hispanic, non-English speaking students. So for vast of my high school years, I was in the special needs with three other kids from the school. So when
that sounded to be quite the experience.
Yeah. So and they were great guys, but you know, and I remember Nick Dada, he was legally blind. I had Brian, he was he had mental illness. He had to drive a cart, and he could only basically push it forward with his right hand. And as a high school student, you see the older guys making fun of you and whatever, but I just sort of embraced it. And it's funny because in a span of 4 years, I went from, being the kid that, no one really liked. I was actually homecoming king, prom king, Mr. FHS.
Dang.
Whoa.
Which for Freeport, I love, Freeport, but it's always been a small town where we're sort of, historically, the football quarterback is who gets all these titles. And I just thought it was hilarious. Later, 2 years later, my brother did the same thing. So, I think once people realized that we were normal just like them, that, had a family that loved me and loved my friends, they all just loved coming over, my mom cooking, making some incredible memories. But while I was in school, we used to clean houses after school and on the weekends, and we cleaned the house for a local real estate broker. And she was always, Camilo, you need to get your real estate license and come and work for us. So I said, okay, well, how do you do that? And she explained to me, get a B18, have a high school diploma. And I said, well, I graduated in about a month. So I went to my parents. We've saved up enough money for me to go to Gatlinburg on our high school senior trip. And I said, I'm not going to go to my high school senior trip. I'm going to go to real estate school. And I have no idea what that is. So I did that. I go to real estate school. I get my license when I'm 18. And then I enrolled for civil engineering that summer. And I start learning, about real estate. The market is crushed. It's 2009, so the word short sales, foreclosures are very, very common. It's not an exciting time to be in real estate or in construction, but I just saw a lot of opportunities. I was that guy that I sold the vacant lot to my physics professor. I sold the house to the director of the engineering department, and I just sort of just kept learning, meeting people, growing. I started, got my broker's license. I started a brokerage, and I continue working with developers, mostly individuals that are just trying to get rid of their assets. I got my first taste in private equity, connected with a group from South Florida. They were buying distressed assets throughout the Panhandle, and participated in some transactions that they were involved in, and sort of just slowly grew the snowball.
What age was that?
This is 2011, so I was 21.
Okay.
21 to 22.
Yeah.
That year, I worked on my first development project. My brother was going to school in Tallahassee, and I said, hey, let's see what we can develop. So we saw an opportunity. I started making a little bit of money, so I was able to buy a vacant lot in downtown Tallahassee, about a mile from the school. And I had this great idea to build a student housing complex. You know, it's huge at that time for me. You know, small today. It was going to be 16 bedrooms, 16 bathrooms. And I was so naive that when I went to the bank with my brother, we had this big smile in our face and says, hey, we're going to do this project. In 2011, not a single bank in the country was going to give a construction loan to a 21-year-old and his 18-year-old, brother partner. So we just had to get creative, sold one of our cars, started saving money, and we just kind of figure out a way to engineer it backwards. You know, we said, it doesn't matter how much it costs per foot to build this. The reality is we only have this much money, and we got to get this done in this time frame. Yeah. So we work it out backwards. I designed a very efficient, the smallest 4-bedroom, 4-bathroom footprint that I could come up with, and the plan was to do 4 of these. So go to the county, the city of Tallahassee, learn the checklist. I learned that I didn't have to be a GC because I couldn't hire one, and I wasn't one myself. So I decided to be an owner builder. And I went to the School of Architecture, and I talked to the dean, and I said, who's your best architecture student that you have that's graduating this year? Gives me the name of a guy. Have coffee with a guy, and I drew basically the plans almost on a napkin, and I said, hey, I got $500. Can you put this on CAD to make sure that it meets the Florida building code? So I said, yeah, you got it. Yeah. So a month later, I had my set of plans, and then, found an engineer that will stamp on them, and just, everything kind of, the snowballs started growing. You guys will like this. I'm not going to go into too much detail on that story, but this lab was the very first thing that we needed to get done. And everybody was quoting us like $8,000, and we had like $4,000 in our budget. So build a relationship with a local concrete contractor, and I said, hey, I know you cannot do it for this price, but do you have a foreman that we can borrow for a week and we'll just pay him cash? The guy's like, yes, we do, but you're still going to need a lot of people. So he says, well, don't worry, just that's one opportunity. We'll figure out the rest. So we sit down with this guy. Where do we get a lot of people from? He says, well, the local jail, as people are getting released, they got to do X number of community service hours. It's like, oh, say no more. So we called them. Actually, I got a photo of it here. I'll show you guys. And we ended up getting like 8 guys from the prison. We went and picked them up. We got them all breakfast that morning, and we got the slab done in the weekend for the price that we needed to get it done.
That's awesome.
That's such an awesome story.
So yeah, so that was sort of our first development project. And then after that, as I was graduating college with my engineering degree, I had met a local developer in the Panhandle. I'll look for that photo and share it with you guys later. But he was a great mentor of mine while I was in school. Very influential. At the time, he had his hands on over half $1 billion on real estate assets. He developed the immigrant in Destin. He was the original developer for Sun Destin Resort, Destin Commons, legendary family of companies. And Peter had to spend, a lot of time teaching me and guiding me. And, my idea was I'm going to move to South Florida, and I'm going to figure out a way to work an opportunity with a developer. I'm a broker. I'm a civil engineer. Surely I can add value. He wasn't doing too good at the time. He had a lot of debt. 14 banks, loans were due, and he had to do a lot of restructuring in his company. He had to let go of a lot of key executives, VP of operations, VP of construction, VP of marketing. And I said, why don't you let me hang by you for about 3 months, kind of see what you're doing until I figure out where I'm going to go from here. Well, 3 months turned into an incredible 4 or 5 year ride. Where I was with him every day, and we were doing acquisitions, dispositions, master planning, capital raises, financial engineering, working with lenders, you name it. I mean, I never got to become amazing at one single thing, but I became great at a lot of things. It was like drinking through a fire hose every day, and it was just so exciting. And he's just such a passionate individual. Like, it was kind of like being in a playground. He's hard. He's a 15-year-old. Big dreamer, and so am I. So just seeing his smile at the office every day, whether it was something challenging or exciting, it was just, an amazing experience. And towards the end, I was doing some of the construction management on our behalf for some of the projects that we were developing. We actually built a restaurant for Lucy Buffett, Lulu's in Destin, and
Okay.
so got to build a great relationship with that team, and I decided to pursue my general constructions, my GC license in the state of Florida. I sort of then went and focused in my own. I'm still doing a little bit of brokerage, some real estate development, but I spent the following 5 years growing a construction company that I've grown to. As a team, we've grown it to 26 employees, 3 offices throughout the Southeast, 8 figures in annual revenue. And then the last 2 years, from 2020 to today, I've spent it putting everything under one umbrella. So at our core DNA, we're a real estate developer investor, but our competitive advantage, we're a fully vertically integrated real estate developer. We can take any project from A to Z, from market analysis, acquisition, as a broker, to do all the entitlements, permitting necessary as a developer, and then we have the construction company that is fully bondable.
Wow. There's few. There can't be that many companies that are fully vertical like that.
Yeah, I don't think nobody's dumb enough to do it. So,
Yeah.
people that are smart, they focus on one thing that they're great at.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so-
Well, I don't know about that. That's pretty remarkable what you guys did.
Was that time during that 4 years with Peter, where you just were with him every day and learning
much.
all those aspects? Was that like one of the biggest growth parts of your life, like where you were just growing so much?
Yeah, because I mean, I got to skip so many years just to be with someone of the quality of experiences that he has over the years. He's an incredible, sharp mind, but you think about it, I did in 4 years what other people would have taken them 20 years. And what I sacrificed, I've never cared about a salary or a compensation in my life. I've never worked for anyone in my life other than sort of myself and just creating my own paths. And so what I gave up was moving to South Florida, getting a great compensation package, but being number 100th in an organization to being right there next to number 1 every day. I didn't care about pay, didn't care about, I just focused on experiences and learning. So
Yeah.
That's awesome. Like, obviously you just went through your whole story from, the beginning to where we are now. And I mean, first off, I'm always impressed about, when I hear people who've migrated over here to this country from another one that don't speak the language, and they have to make their way, regardless. I know how much of a hill that is to climb in a way. I grew up a military brat, so I bounced around. I've lived over in Asia most of my childhood, so I have same dynamic a little bit, obviously not to the extreme that you guys went through, but, going to these new places, not speaking the language, and sort of having to adapt and overcome. So, yeah, when you guys came over here, first off, and I know you said, the first, I think it was like 5 to 8 months, you were pretty pissed off, angry, which I can definitely relate to that. I remember moving around when I was little, being angry most of the time, just having to leave friends and everything. But you said there was a point where, a switch flipped, and you're like, okay, now it's time to get to work or start doing things. What made that switch flip? What do you think did that for you?
I think it was realizing that this country, our founding fathers, I don't think they could ever dream. I mean, I don't want to get into politics, and I say our because this pin that I wear, my mom gave it to us when we became U.S. citizens in 2013. And so I where a lot of people think that I'm running for a political position. It's like, no, dude, it's just my mom gave me this pin when I became a U.S. citizen, and it's a very, very special thing for me. But I don't think the founding fathers could have realized the incredible experiment that they created when they founded this country. And it's really the only place in the world where there's such a thing as freedom of speech and opportunities, where other countries, if you don't come from a wealthy family, or you don't have political connections, once you're in the hole, you're in the hole, and everybody's so driven, but everybody wants, there's just so much talent and so much grit that nobody really gets to have an opportunity, only that a very few select. and just realizing that this country is really a white canvas for those that want to work hard for it. And we have people like you guys that work hard to protect our freedom and those ideals. That I just didn't want to waste another day in my life. I kind of like made sort of a promise to myself that hopefully I'm over 100 when I die, and I look back and I look at that 14-year-old immigrant me in the eyes. I can lie to anyone. I can lie to you. I can lie to you. I can lie to my mom. I can lie to my fiance. But I could never lie to that 14-year-old guy when I look at myself in the mirror. So I just set a goal and a commitment to that guy to just give everything I can to just live a fulfilled life of always challenging myself and seeking opportunities.
That's remarkable, man. I mean, what a blessing it is to learn at such a young age, like what this country has to offer. And I think, for the most part, it seems like it's, immigrants that come over here, from wherever they come, they're the first ones to realize that, because they don't grow up in this country. They know what they don't have. And I love watching it. Especially the Colombians around here probably have some of the biggest work ethic I've ever seen, which is why a lot of them are so successful, because that is the bottom line, right? Do the work and you'll reap the rewards.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree.
That's awesome. How was it for your family? I mean, because I can only imagine, because you guys say you came, from Colombia and you lived a pretty good life there, and then pretty much losing everything and coming over here. I mean, how was it with the family dynamic? Because you guys are living in, a one, would you say bedroom apartment or trailer?
Yeah.
Just you guys all living together, coming from Colombia, living that lifestyle, and then coming here and sort of starting from the bottom and working your way up. Like, how was it with the whole family during that time?
It was very tough at the moment. Looking back, it's probably some of the best memories we've ever had. But before actually moving here, I mean, my dad confessed there's a lot of times where he thought about, not needing to live on this earth anymore. And like yet actually committing suicide came across his mind a couple of times. But he's like, I cannot leave my wife on this earth and my two kids without a father. And my mom could have had opportunities where all she had to do was divorce my dad and find another wealthy man and move on. But they stuck together, and we were able to create some, like, again, just always when you look back, when you realize we had an old Mazda in like 1980s, and we got a free trailer. We bought a little dirt bike, and we converted the jet ski trailer into a trailer for our bike, and we will hook up this dirt bike to this 1980s Mazda, and we'll go to a dirt pit on the weekends, and we'll just ride the dirt bike and rotate it around. Probably some of the most exciting memories that I have. We'll clean houses on Saturdays for vacation rental companies, and we will always sprint to the kitchen because when people leave town, they will always leave the frozen food. Like a lot of it was unpacked, and just like all of us, like, okay, we're driving on the car and going out there. What do we think they left today? Corn dogs, hot dogs, and like just like all of us, literally just like we wouldn't buy breakfast. We'll just go there and then just whatever corn dogs they left, we'll hit them up and just sharing time, and then we'll make competitions. Like, okay, you mom and dad one way. How many bets can you guys do before the next 30 minutes? And so, yeah, it was just
so cool.
It was just amazing. And just celebrating Christmases with a lot of families that were sort of in the same boat, just a humbling experience of just, you're not a label, you're not the CEO of XYZ, you're not, you're just, you're a nobody looking for opportunities. And just surrounding ourselves with very like-minded families, we have some incredible memories.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
It's pretty amazing. The toughest of times usually are the best memories that you have when you look back on it, right? Because you're just grateful for everything that you have and what it took to get to that point.
And you said something earlier when you mentioned, I think you were talking about jiu-jitsu, that it takes the ego away.
Yep.
And I think, success is our biggest enemy, that, it comes with that ego. And just learning how to, for me, the one thing that I constantly fight with against every day is trying to push that ego away.
Yep.
And trying to focus on what's important to me and my mission and what I believe is my purpose on this earth. And just trying to enjoy every day for what we get, because tomorrow's not promised. So
That is correct. Yeah. What are some of the things that you do, or what practices do you do to sort of keep your ego in check?
So I started this routine about 2 years ago now, but really focused over the last 12 months. I sort of the bulk of my career, I really built it by grinding and staying focused, keeping my head down. And as I started reaching a small level of success, just starting relaxing a little bit, going out on weekends, having fun with friends, and I realized that that's not what I wanted to do. So I think in my opinion, we all have things to be fully committed. Just three things. However you decide to spend your time, for some people is work, going out, and family. For some others, it's sports, family. But I don't think you can go out, work, spend time with family, and then do your hobbies. So I decided that I wanted to focus on the three most important things for me, which is my family, my growing a business that has a mission and a purpose, and sports. And what I started doing, having a daily routine, which is something that I didn't have. So the first thing that I do every day, I dedicate 2 hours to myself. I wake up and the first thing is I just give gratitude. It's something that's so obvious for a lot of people, but to give conscious gratitude and ask yourself a question like, what are the three most important things to me today? Like, if I knew this is my last day, what is it that is the most valuable things to me? And you'll realize that it's not the accolades, it's not the titles, it's not the money, it's not the material things. It's always the cheapest, most readily available things that we sometimes don't take enough time to appreciate. So family, those close, not friends but allies. Because like they say, friends will tell you what you want to hear, allies will tell you what you need to hear. So those very special people in your life that push you to grow. And just try to find something that like I don't like humid weather, so but like in a summer day, if it's humid outside, so thank you God for this incredible warm weather.
Yep.
And really just try to find the positive and even the little things that makes us uncomfortable, and then journaling and meditating and then exercise. So those are sort of the four things that I do every day. 2 hours in the morning just to myself. I don't do anything else. Don't even pick up my phone, look at my calendar. That's just time to work on my body and my mind.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, I mean, I'm Dave. I know you do something similar as well. Yeah, I get up, same thing, not 2 hours early, probably like an hour and a half, and really just sit down. The first thing I do is open my Bible, read through that, and then I thank God for just having the air in my lungs that morning and being able to do whatever I'm able to do that day. I think gratitude, like you said, you said it's obvious, to do, but I think for a lot of people, it's hard. I think it's a lot of people, it's hard for them to get up and actually give gratitude. Yeah. But once you get there, it clears out your whole day. It's awesome.
What's crazy is I think of like because I relate a lot with your story, right? Like I relate with there's some differences there, right? Like I nearly died of drug addiction, and so it was. I expected to die, so it was like, hey, every day is kind of like another day in the bonus round. And so there's nothing to lose in a sense. And I think a lot of kids miss that today. It's like, hey, you're 16, you're 18, you're 20-some. You don't have family, you don't have wife, you don't have kids. Like, go for it. Like get yourself I have a lot of questions, but one of them is one thing that I heard a lot of was they're like finding joy in the struggle, where you guys are hustling on the weekends. You're in making it into a game where hey, what are they going to have left in the fridge? To how fast can you do the beds, like stuff like that. It's so awesome, but it's almost like getting into this mindset of hustle and this routine, this habit of hustling, and then when you make it. Right, when you all of a sudden you're like, hey, listen, I've built it. Like I have more money than I ever dreamed of having, and it's like beginning to change and grow. And it's not so much about the money, but more about this experience and understanding, learning a lot from guys that really know, putting yourself around them. But then it's like, hey, where does that hustle, you begin to relax, you begin to take things for granted, you begin to forget of where you came from. Do you ever struggle with that of going, man, it's, now your day to day, it's like you're not thinking about, man, what am I going to do to pay the rent this month, or what am I going to do to, you're thinking about, hey, what's the next step? What's the next thing? How else do I grow? Do you ever struggle with like just going back and remembering that?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, first of all, just through my experience, I have a huge fear, not for myself, because I mean I can live on ramen noodles, I can live under a bridge, but just that fear of taking everything away from you and just seeing my future kids. I have a huge social responsibility and ethical responsibility with my parents. They don't have a social security, they don't have a retirement account, so before I even think about my kids, I got to make sure that my parents will be able to retire of old age and live a comfortable life, right? And then thinking about what I want to the future that I want to build for my kids and my grandkids. Like before I think about myself retire on an exotic island, like I really think about the opportunities that I'm going to create for my grandkids. Like I have dreams that I want to accomplish in my lifetime of foundations that I want to create for my grandkids, and that's just kind of how I think. But I think the for me it's a never ending journey. Like I don't have like, oh, this is what I wanted to accomplish. It's like before I'm getting there, I already have another milestone, and I think is having a growth mindset versus a fixed mindset, where we're always the talking about ego, the biggest lesson that I've learned in the last 10 years, and it's not a lesson, it's just more a technique because you never learn it, is to learn and realize that the race is only with yourself. And when you do things out of passion and out of pressure, but good pressure, you're growing it because you want to prove yourself, not. And when you do things out of ego, is because you want to prove others wrong. So I think when you have clear goals and you want to do something for yourself, and you can continuously keep pushing yourself forward, I think that's when you find it the most rewarding. I mean, it sounds cliche when you hear the quotes that it's not about the destination, it's about the journey. And it's like, yeah, whatever. But like it really is true.
But they have some truth to them.
It really is truth. If you go back and look, when was that, when you won a championship, or, you won, a war, or you grew a business to a certain level and you got a check, what were you excited about? I mean, did you ever felt the thrill of holding a check with X number of zeros behind it, or like actually thinking about all the struggles that you went through? I think that's what you celebrate the most. 100%. And so I think it's just always seeking to have that incredible journey. And ultimately, I think there's a world law, regardless of what beliefs or religion you live, is just be a good human. Treat others the way you want to be treated. And I think if you have a mission and you're driven and you wanna leave a mark in this earth, whether for some people it might be little, but if you put the effort forward, that's amazing. And so I think that's what I focus on: constantly evolving, constantly growing, just never get complacent, and just always have a bigger goal that again for others might be small, but for me is just something that requires a lot of commitment and sacrifice to get there. And I think that's what keeps things exciting.
Yeah, I think it's so, and I 100% agree with you. There's like this internal, like you learn this internal, I compete with myself primarily, right? And so there's external things to it, but there's the internal pressure that you give yourself, that you're like, hey, these are goals that I've set, and I'm going to hit these goals, and it's going to be tough, and it's going to be just far enough that, man, I'm going to really have to hustle to get it and hit that goal. But I see the path, I see the vision, and I'm going to figure out a way. There's going to be pivots along the way, like with your story with the slab, and you're like, I only got $4K, and it cost $8K at least, and I'm going to figure out how to make that happen. And it's that internal goal where you're your own boss, and you're pushing yourself. I see a lot of guys that they have to have someone else give them that pressure and that goals to grow. But when you give it to yourself, you really grow. And I think of one story I think of is when I first started Rep Box, Fran was pregnant with number one, right? And so she just left her job. I think at the time we were making, I don't know, maybe $80,000 a year or so. Like, so we were somewhat comfortable, right? And I'm like, hey, I'm gonna leave my job. I know you just left yours. I know you're pregnant with our first one, but I have to do this, and I'm gonna make it happen. I don't know how exactly yet, but I'm gonna make it happen. And luckily, I have an awesome wife, and she's like, okay, I trust you. And so every month, you know, I wake up with that pressure on my shoulders, like, okay, I have to figure out a way, right? Like our monthly income does not match. we literally have nothing coming in. And so I'd have to work really hard to get one customer that would be like $100 a month or something like that, right? And so I'd have to supplement with doing websites and doing all sorts of stuff, just trying to make it month to month. And it came to a point where I've grew it enough where I was like, man, we're close, but man, we're not there. And like, I don't know how we're going to make it this next month. And so I did a Hail Mary, went and I found this company that there was 11 companies that they were all my primary customers, and they had this annual meeting, and they'd go to this meeting every year, and they had one coming up like 2 weeks later. And I went and I found one of the companies. I drove over to their office, and I sat in the waiting room. I just waited for the owner to get back from lunch. It's like, I'm going to meet with him. Like there's no appointment, no nothing. I'm going to be there. He's going to meet with me. I'm going to meet with him. I'm going to show him the software. I show him the software. And he's like, you know what? I'll get you in to come present. And so I put it on a credit card. I pay for a flight and I pay for a hotel. I'm in Nashville, Tennessee. And I go to this hotel. I'm the last speaker of their little private meeting. And there's 11 companies, right? And so like, if I can just nail one or two of these guys, I think we can make it. I go up, and they're all tired. I'm trying to introduce myself beforehand, and they're all tired. And I'm like, damn it. Like, of course, they don't, the last person they want to talk to is some software guy pitching his software. And I start to go through the pitch. And then, like, a couple minutes in, I'm like, I go, you know what? Fuck it. And everyone kind of like, and I was like, I'm just going to, I'm going to skip all the talk, and I'm going to show you exactly what it does. And I, like, put it up on the board, and I just started going through, here's how you handle commissions, here's how you import it, here's how the aliases work, here's how you do your quotes and RFQs and RFPs. And in about, I don't know, like 5 minutes later, one of the owners stood up, and he starts pacing in the back. And I thought, oh man, like maybe this dude's like uber religious or something. And I said the F word, and this is a very professional meeting, and I shouldn't have said that. He's probably pissed about it. And he stops me and says, wait. You're telling me that not only you have, commissions and sampling and quotes, but you also handle all the sales importing? And he's like, this is unbelievable. And and literally from that point on, I didn't know it at the time, but that was kind of the head guy, and like all the other companies kind of just followed suit with whatever he did. That day I landed all 11 companies. We were like, I called home. I'm like, baby, we did it. I'm like, break out the red panties. I'm like, we made it. And it's like those moments through the struggle of trying to build something, right, where you've put your goals out there. You don't know how you're going to do it, but you're going to figure out a way. And it's like high highs, low lows too, right? Where there's days where you're like, man, what am I doing? Am I an idiot? Like, do I just need to go get a regular job and like, and you just doubting yourself? But then there's those breakthroughs that come along the way. That's just incredible.
That's amazing. Is that how Shepherd was born?
No, that one,
the red panty night.
Dude, I love that kid.
He's the best.
Yeah, all of them were incredible, but he's just like so full of energy. Like you can just tell.
He's a wild man. Well, he's a little Dave.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah,
it scares me.
I got one. I got one as well.
Yeah. My Shepherd is your Ryan.
Yeah,
that's too funny.
Yeah. He's like, with Shepherd, I'm like, he's either gonna be like a professional criminal, or he's going to be some entrepreneur, like super, hopefully.
It's got to steer him in that right direction, that's all.
Yeah.
Well, but I think if you look at those traits, I mean, it takes people, think outside the box and just take for their beliefs. And it applies to both evil or good. And it's just kind of how you apply it. But if you look at some of the, sharpest, minds, I mean, I think, Hitler was a evil individual. Imagine had he been able to harness all that talent and his skill to change humanity for the positive. My God.
Yeah, if only Hitler was raised right.
Yeah, I know, right?
Things would have been different.
Yeah, if only. Yeah, easier said than done.
So you also said you're into sports. That's what sort of keeps you in check. What sports are you into?
So throughout my life, I kind of done a little bit of everything, but I've always liked adrenaline-driven sports.
Mm-hmm.
So riding dirt bikes, I've always wanted to, I had this dream when I was a kid. I always wanted to be a rally racer, wanted to be like in the Paris-Dakar. Didn't even know how to spell Paris, but I just, and about two and a half years ago, my fiance, she grew up in a cattle ranch in Alabama, and their next door neighbors, they played polo for about 30 years, and so I started playing polo. But the story started. We were one day at the farm, and he's like, "Hey, Camilo, you're from Colombia? Come over here and get on the horse with us." I said, "Well, actually, I never really ridden that many horses in my life, but I do love them." And I get on the pony. They give me a mallet. We go out on the field, and it's like if I had ridden a Toyota Prius, and all of a sudden I get access to this Ferrari on a racetrack, and it was just, I was moving all over the place. I couldn't hit the ball, but I just fell in love with it, and I just kept wanting to do more and more and more. So I travel a lot for my business, and so what I started doing, everywhere I'll travel, I'll look up polo club and call the pro that was, had given me that first intro lesson, see who he will connect me with, and, my mentor, Kenny Bramlett, who's the gentleman that owns the polo farm where I played at first. And they started introducing me to people, and just one thing leads to another. I started getting the lesson about once a month. But fall of 2020, I knew that it's something that I loved. And I started driving to the farm in Alabama, wake up at 4 a.m, do some calls on the way there, get there by 8 o'clock, ride 2 horses, take an hour break, work, ride 2 more horses. And I did this Friday through Sunday for about 2 months. And towards the end of it, I remember on my way back, I called my fiance. She was my girlfriend at the time, and I had tears in my face, just not sobbing, but it was just had such a special bond. And I think you guys relate now with jiu-jitsu, where it's something that becomes part of your life.
Yeah.
For me, it was just the relationship that I had with the horses, the people in the community. We were not in some fancy field sponsored by Vocally Co. and just people dressed up fancy. We were in an open field in the middle of nowhere wearing jeans. We're like a bunch of wild Indians, chasing a bull. And there was just something fascinating about that, just to feel your heartbeat with your horse's heartbeat and 7 other people, and you literally feel the field stumping and the vibration on the ground. And don't try polo, because I know you guys have an adrenaline driven personality, and you don't need another hobby in your life. So I'll just leave it at that. But yeah, it's actually changed my life. Going back to some of those early habits that I mentioned, I didn't want to keep going out on the weekends and drinking. I didn't want to spend another Saturday hangover, and so actually I didn't want to be hungover to ride a few 100-pound animal, and I just kind of remember how amazing it was to be fully focused, the same energy that you put on a Tuesday through, because let's face it, if you go out on a Saturday, stay out late, you're not going to be productive on a Monday. We're more reactive than proactive.
Yeah,
can you still get things done?
Age.
Can you still get things done? Absolutely. But there's something to be said about having your mind in the sharpest way possible to actually do things that move the needle. And it's easier said than done, but when you actually have your mind clear and you're able to focus, I think you guys relate, because I can see through y'all's habits and the way you guys look that you guys spend a lot of time and focus for your body and your mind. You can actually move mountains, what we can do here with our brain. So yeah, it kind of built some discipline, much needed discipline that I felt that I needed in my life for what I want to accomplish. And it's just a beautiful sport. Plus, my fiance was a lot more excited to come watch me play polo than go to a dirt bike track and hear me going, but I met some incredible people throughout the world. There's only about 10,000 players that play polo. So it's a lifestyle. It's not a sport. It's like once you play polo, I don't play professionally, I just play it for fun, but still a huge commitment.
Yeah.
But it's a beautiful thing.
I heard. So I'm be honest. Like I don't know much about polo. From
You don't.
no.
I think you did.
Yeah, I'm not a polo master here, but I know it has to be a rough sport, right? So I looked it up just to get a background on it. So it's 4-on-4,
Yeah.
right? And then you have like extra horses, obviously, if one gets hurt. But then, how big is the field? Is it like 9 football fields?
So a field is 10 acres.
Mm-hmm.
That's not including setbacks for overruns and so forth. It's 480 feet wide by 900 feet long. And then a time in polo is called a chukker. They're 7.5 minutes. At my level, I'll call it amateur level. About 80% of the games in the world are 4 chukkers. So there's 4 times. And then you got some higher goal tournaments. There are 6 chukkers, and then like the best polo in the world, where like everybody's the best of the best. They play 8 chukkers. A horse is only good for about 7.5 minutes because they're better athletes than us. They're like the real heroes in the sport, and so they just give it their best. They're trained specifically to play polo. You cannot just get any horse, put a saddle on it and let's go play polo. Like it really, you take them when they're about 6 years old and train them for about 2 years, and they're still not ready, to play. And then you slowly introduce them to the games because, once they see a mallet going up through their, they freak out. So you really got to get the horse acclimated to that. So first get it acclimated to the mallet. Mm-hmm. Then you get it acclimated to a bowl. You're swinging this large thing that they can see, and then they see a ball. So that's step 2. Now, other horses in the field, now they getting hit by the ball sometimes, which is, we get hit, the horses get hit by the ball 99% of the time. They're just, just a normal hit. So there's not rarely major injuries from that. And then polo is very similar to hockey. It's very physical, so the ball always has a right of way that you cannot cross that line. It makes it a foul, but you're able to sort of go. Once you're able to elbow, you can come and you can push the other person out of their line, because that's how you can get the ball from them. So you come in, you're in the highway, you come up about the same distance, and you want to come with your horse, push them out all together. So it's very physical.
Dang, so you sort of check them with the horse.
Yeah. That's it. Yeah.
There has to be a lot of injuries, in which, because I imagine just falling off a horse. So I've only ridden probably like 5 or 6 times, and I would go. So when I was in the military, we would go up to Washington State to do some sniper training, and it was at this ranch. So the guy had tons of horses. I mean, it was beautiful. And near the end of that training, we would do a livestock on horses. So they would let us get on the horse, and we'd travel however many miles to then get off and actually stalk in to take our shot. It was actually pretty comical because most of the team guys that went up there, there's probably like a small percentage of them that actually grew up riding horses, and the rest of us, either city boys or just never rid horses before in our life. And it was like a half-hour demo of okay, this is how you do it. Get on here. These are the commands. And the big thing was just show the horse you're in charge. Do not let it, And I mean that's easier said than done. And I remember, because I went up there multiple times, and each time we get on and you see these guys trying to get used to riding the horse, and all it takes is one horse to take off, and then the whole herd just starts going. And I mean, it is probably the funniest sight to watch about 15 Navy SEALs clinging on to horses' necks, going up this side of a mountain, screaming how do I make it stop?
Oh my God.
But guys would fall off, and somebody would always inevitably, break a limb. So I can imagine, riding around, trying to hit this ball with a mallet. amount of coordination that takes, not only between you but the horse and then you guys combined, which is pretty amazing.
They didn't have like horse. You didn't ride in horses in Missoula. You didn't like ride in on the horses.
Not in Mosul. I actually have some buddies that
camels.
That did ride horses in to a couple ops in Afghanistan.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Just because of the terrain of getting up places.
I'm pretty sure the terrain was a factor, and also they just were like, it'd be badass to ride a horse into an op.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean it's just like every extreme sport. I'll say, I'll put polo probably in there. It's got all its risk, but I think if you go in with the safety first, and there's a process where you first need to learn how to properly ride a horse, and it's one of those things. When you play sports, you just never reach the ultimate pinnacle of like, oh, I've mastered this. I know it. There's not a black and white. You're always growing, and the more you play, the higher level tournaments you're playing, the more discipline that it requires. But I'll say that there's a way, at my level, or really at any level, to do it in a relatively safe way. Yes, there's always going to be the danger that a horse will freak out, or you'll fall off, or you just didn't had a proper posture and riding technique where you just were weak that day and you weren't focused. So yeah, there's injuries, but for the most part, I mean, like I'll tell you, in my club, there's a gentleman. He's amazing, and he's in his 70s. He's blind in one eye, and he still plays polo and rides better than many people I know. Wow. There's a lot of people that have gotten into the sport in their late 60s, mid 60s.
Really?
Yeah. There's a gentleman out of Alabama. He's probably one of the most influential people in polo in the country now. He got into polo, I think, in his late 50s. He had never ridden a horse in his life. And last year he won the U.S. Open, which is the highest level of polo in the U.S. So yeah, and the cool thing about it is kind of like I'll compare it to sort of like race car driving. You can be in a local track, in the country on small carts, or you can do Formula One, and it's the same thing.
Yeah.
There's the horses are the same. Just because there's a horse, it doesn't mean that all of them are the best horses in the world. So there's horses that are $200,000. There's older horses that you can still play that are $3,000.
Yeah.
So I'll say the average polo pony price is somewhere between $10,000 and $20,000.
Dang, it's an expensive sport.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
You think it's important for you, like doing things like that there's just like unlimited growth and like growing that actually helps you professionally?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, from a strategic standpoint, polo is a very, it's a mind sport, really. I mean, the physical portion, it's already understood. It's kind of like one of those things, that it's extremely physical, but just because you got the physical component, that doesn't mean anything. And then there's sort of almost a business component, because it takes a lot of effort to sort of orchestrate all of this and make it work. And then also it requires you to be a team player, both with your three other peers, and then understanding your opponents. So it's super strategic. And then also it's relationship driven. Polo is one of the only sports in the world that your handicap is based on your sportsmanship. So sort of like no assholes allowed.
Really?
Really?
Yeah.
So there's an etiquette.
There's an etiquette to it. Yeah, and there's certain things that you have to be. So like one of the rules is just being late. It's a big no-no. Carrying yourself in the field, even if you lose, the way you behave, and you're great in a lot of that. So in fact, earlier, hundreds of years ago, in India, I think, that's when the first iterations of polo started. That's how they will train the military, their cavalry. They had this version of polo, and that's how they train for their horsemanship and sportsmanship, and so yeah.
Are you telling me Ralph Lauren didn't start polo?
So actually, believe it or not, Ralph Lauren has nothing to do with polo or at the time. I don't know the details of the story. Maybe he can hear this podcast and call you guys one day to corroborate what it is. So he can. Maybe this is a challenge for Ralph Lauren to call you guys.
We won't take him.
Okay, but he was in the clothing and fashion business, and he wanted to start a brand. And literally, I think there's in an article he says, I was trying to figure out what name to put on this label, and I said, it's just got to be something sexy. So it's like basketball. I mean, can I name it Basketball Lauren? Basketball Ralph Lauren? No. So started thinking tennis Ralph Lauren. It's like polo. I think that sounds like a good label, and that's kind of how Polo Ralph Lauren came about.
That's insane.
Did he even play?
No.
Oh man!
No.
I'm never getting a polo shirt again.
And actually, the other brand that people call it, like the ghetto word for it is Polo Assassin. It's kind of like the cheap brand of polo. It's actually the official United States Polo Association gear that's owned by the United States Polo Association, and just people look at it as a knockoff. So I think that's like an incredible pair to your story behind it.
Wow, that's awesome.
It's crazy how, just that story about Ralph Lauren, like just picking, like, you know what? I'm just going to call it polo, and now look where it's at.
Yeah. Wow. Awesome. Dude, thank you so much for coming on.
No, appreciate you guys.
Your story is awesome. One of the things I think of is just the nuggets in there of hustling, like not staying in a victim mentality, like hustling, like looking at opportunities, seeing where, hey, not looking at, hey, I don't have this, I don't have that, or I'm disadvantaged. Man, I feel like the world needs a lot of like, hey, no, where do I have opportunities? It doesn't matter disadvantages, right? Like you had to learn English. Like you can't, you're built a huge real estate development company, fully vertical, like one of the few probably in the world. Like just the ability to overcome. I think it's awesome.
Yeah. I mean, seriously, it's been an honor having you on, you telling your story, and just, I hope that your story inspires others, man, because you have all the characteristics that people should aspire to. Your tenacity, your work ethic, just your ability to overcome obstacles, and then also just your outlook on life. Like you said, the way you wake up every morning, you're grateful for everything you have. I hope people take a lot from this.
No, I appreciate you guys.
You've inspired Eddie to play polo.
Hey, I might.
I would love to see him out there. But I'm just a little guy with a big dream. I think one of my favorite analogies. Sometimes people say, well, but they were born on third base, and I think it's more rewarding to kind of go zoom past somebody that was born in third base when you were born outside of the field and didn't even have a ticket. You figure out a way to jump the fence, come in, grab the bat, get a home run, and just go fly past, but just because you want to do it for yourself. So
I love that. I love it. Awesome. Thank you so much,
Appreciate
man.
you guys.